Hello there, Master Hellish here, and welcome to a special spotlight video where we're going to look at a map. Specifically, we did a charity event recently where we raised lots of money and played a fantastic game of OpenTTD. And the map that we used for that game was particularly interesting, both the map before and the way that people played it, and some quirks of it too. So we're going to have a good look at that today. First up, we're in the scenario editor to look at the map itself and talk about its generation. Now, this was mostly done by Wizard Brandon, who you can see has left his mark on the map in the bottom corner. I don't know if anybody noticed that during the game. But overall, the map was absolutely fantastic, and there was a bit of an iterative process to go, back and forth between me and Brandon. It was a collaborative effort to get it exactly how we wanted it, and I think, yes, it was a fantastic map in the end. Now let's quickly go over how we did that and why we did certain things. So you can see in the middle here we've got some islands. The idea of the islands was so that we can unlock them during the charity event and people could pay and donate to the charity for those unlocks. It was an incentive for the charity donations, and we did that during the stream and it was fantastic. Now these shapes here were suggested by a large language model. We were having trouble thinking of what shapes we could use on the map that would be really good as silhouettes, because some festive shapes are really cool but wouldn't have made good silhouettes. So we asked ChatGPT, who came up with a number of suggestions. Some of them were terrible and a lot of them were good, and we chose from the good ones and ended up with these four. We ended up with a Christmas tree, a Santa hat, a festive snowflake, and a bell with holly leaves. And it worked out quite well. Now the rest of the map is a landmass around it. We've got a kind of border around these shapes and there's a big landmass there. Now the reason for that is twofold. First off, if you have too much water in your game, it can slow the game down, especially for people who don't have as good computers or if the server is struggling for other reasons. Too much water on the map just is bad for processing on the game. So we filled in as much of the map as possible with not water, i.e. land. The second reason is that we wanted a lot of land because we knew we were going to have a lot of people joining in on this particular event. I believe we had somewhere in the region of 30 to 40 people take part throughout the event, with a peak viewership, peak playership, I should say, not viewership, of about 25 people in various different companies all over the map. And we'll have a look at what they did on this map a little bit in this video. So that is two reasons why we had land all the way around the outside. Now, how did we generate this pretty brilliant map? We didn't go around with the tools and go, oh, right, okay, we need a little bit more out there. Oh, no, wait, that's too much. Let's do. We didn't use those. We used the height map tools in the game. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about this because I'm going to be having a tutorial video about how height maps in OpenTTD and how you can make your own. But the overview is that you make an image in your favorite editor, for example, Paint or GIMP, whatever graphical editor you choose, and it's a black and white or a monochrome image that you use to generate the height of the map. So I can't remember which way around it is. I think the darker the color, the higher the land, or something along those lines. Well, I'll tell you all about it in the video. And then once you've created that, you can import it into OpenTTD, and here you go. So we had some shapes, we filled in the outside of the map, we made sure there was a gap in the middle, and there we go, we imported it in. The only other thing of note is that these hills here, these hills where the land nicely goes up and down like that, we used something called Perlin noise for that, and again, we'll cover that in the special tutorial video about height maps. So there we go, we made a height map. Now there's one last thing to say about this map before we look at what people did with it. And that's if you have a good look around the map, you may notice there's no trees. So after we generated the height map, we generated the towns, generated the industries, and we threw a few extra industries on some of the islands, like over here, you can see we've got two farms next to each other, and we disabled a setting in the game which limited industries of the same type to one per town, and that will be important later. And yeah, but the other thing you may notice is there's no trees, and this is important, and because it means the file size of the map is smaller. So the map size of the map we've got, and I'm just checking on the other screen here, for this map is 1.1 meg, okay? And that's without the trees. So if we come in and we go to tree generation, and we go, oh, lots of random trees, okay? I've actually got them set to invisible, so let's uninvisible them. There's a certain amount of trees there. You probably would normally place more trees than that. So let's do one more batch of random trees. And yeah, the landscape is starting to look a little less bare. It definitely looks better with some trees on there. But if I go and save that scenario now, let's say save it as one with trees, and I go and check over on my other screen, I can tell you that is now 2.2 megabytes. The only change we made was adding trees, and it doubled the map size. So for the purposes of people being able to download the map quickly and get into the game, we decided to have no trees. So that was the starting map. What did players do with it? Well, you can see from this view quite a lot. Each colour is a different company as we're in the land ownership view on the world map, and you can see lots of different strategies and different things going on the map. We're going to have a look at some of the particular ones in a moment, but let's have a look at what the companies did and how they performed overall. You can see here that we've got some companies that were making more money than other companies, and there's the list of companies too in the key, but everybody made profitable companies, and it was interesting to see the different ways that they did that and the fun that they had in the game too. Now, in addition to that, we can have a look at a couple of the key companies. We can see which one was the ones near the top. I think it was Daily Coffee did pretty well. Yep, Daily Coffee was first place. Let's highlight that one. You can see Daily Coffee only had 121 trains, which is, you know, it's quite a big number, but not a massive number that you might get in some gameplays. And that's because the limitations that we had. At the beginning of the game, you weren't allowed any trains, any road vehicles, any ship or any aircraft. People had to donate to increase the number of limited vehicles. And that resulted in people having lots of different types of vehicles. People bought aircraft where they normally wouldn't. Lots of companies had lots of ships because the limit for that one was raised up. It was interesting to play around with that game mechanic, and we found that lots of different companies had different amounts. If we look through the companies and have a look at Kid Transport, you can see a smaller number of vehicles because it was a newer company. And if we have a look at, oh, what else? What company was I in? I can't find it. Oh, Mod Inc. I think I was in Mod Inc. We had quite a large number of ships, but again, pushed for a good number of trains because, of course, that is our favourite, and even had some aircraft as well. Lots of road and rail pieces placed. 19,000 rail pieces placed. Try saying that quick. By my team, and then you can see 4,000 by Kid and 29,000 by Daily Coffee as some examples. Really good gameplay, great fun. Let's have a look at some specific things that's happening here. Two of the things that I noticed very easily is these great big purple lines across the map, these big diagonals. Now, we all know, you should know from looking at my videos, that diagonal lines like that make you extra money, roughly a third extra on top, due to the diagonalness and the way that the game measures distance. There we go, we can actually have a look at one of these diagonal lines in the game, and you can see it's a big long track with big long trains, and these trains are going from one place, they're doing a full load, and they're going back down and going the other way. And there we go, there's the head of the train. Now we could even unpause it for a moment. I think these bridges and these other smaller mods that we had in the game looked quite nice. We did have a list of mods. In fact, let's show you those mods while we're at it. Here we go. This is kind of like a standard set that we often use. Shark for boats, we've got the tram sets to be able to have trams in the game. Vac train and hover vehicles in case people want to play this game further into the future. The industry stations renewal sets along with the track, the depots and the British station sets just for eye candy really. And the total bridge renewal set because they're cool bridges and they don't change the game too much. But you can see this diagonal line going right across the map, and then players being very nice to each other. We have bridges going over land bridges with other bridges in there as well. And the reason for that is if anybody's putting boats around here, boats can still get around these land bridges that people started building between the islands, which is very good sportsmanly gameplay, and I love to see in my games. So these big diagonals right across the map there, nice and good. And it brings us down to the bottom of the map where there's something quite interesting going on here. Look at all these oil rigs. There's loads of them in a small space. Now, this came about because somebody noticed that on the map there was oil rigs naturally generating in just an area. You see a big clump of them here on the map. And this is due to a game setting we changed so that we could have multiple industries per town on some of the islands. You can see here we've got 2 farms over there, and we've got, well, it's just 1 forest. But there's 2 forests. There's another forest next to it. There's 2 farms next to each other there. Some of these would have been generated throughout the game, so they're not doubled up. But at the beginning of the game, we doubled up the industries on some of the islands to make the islands more attractive for people to unlock and try and get some resources from. So then we had to change that game setting, which allowed multiple industries per town. And when the oil rigs were generating, well, we got multiple of them too. But why did it happen like this? Well, oil rigs can only generate from a certain distance from the edge of the map. And we had no water around the edge of our map. Remember, we tried to eliminate as much water as possible. And the distance from the edge of the map to those oil rigs just happened to be the right amount for this natural section of water in the map to be able to generate the oil rigs in. So because the game had very few choices about where it could generate an oil rig, because there were land all in the area which would normally be for the oil rigs, it put them all in pretty much one place. There was another place that it did it over here as well. Once we noticed this, people started digging out land near the edge of the map to increase the chances of oil rigs being built there. And it worked. Because there were very few places around the map that oil rigs could be placed, wherever people dug out land, a large number of oil rigs were placed. And then there came a big oil rush. You see somebody doing it towards the end of the game here. There's not many oil rigs. I think there was another natural place where they started generating, yep, here. And again, the land was altered in order to try and get more oil rigs to come in. It was an interesting game mechanic that came about because of that setting we changed and because of the shape of the map. If we hadn't have changed that setting, or if there'd been water around the edge of the map, this weird oil rig mini game that came up would not have happened. So in addition to the aforementioned land bridges that people put between the islands and the mainland, we also had people using land for other things, like messages. It was a charity live stream after all, and people decided that the message of donating was important enough to spend their valuable company money to be able to get the message across, to try and encourage the viewers to donate. This was a nice little thing to see on the screen. It's a bit of fun writing words in the ocean, and it's a nice little message to do as well. Also a Merry Christmas message in there too. Also, you may have noticed there's a little island in the middle, and this is where we put our company HQs. You can see people decorated some of them with vehicles, and also we've got bits of road and even a boat going around one of the HQs there as well. I like it when we all put our HQs in one place on a map. It's a kind of a nice little community thing to do. We don't always do it, but then you can see that everybody's got their company headquarters on this nice little island in the middle of the map. Now, if we look at the town directory, we can see the world population. Now, the map at the beginning of the game had a population of 1.3 million, and over the course of the live stream, we grew that population to 4.6 million. Definitely a massive increase in population size. If we change the town directory to sort by town size you can see there are some pretty huge towns. Now, bear in mind, this is the default game town growing algorithm. So we've got a big town here, and I believe there's quite a few different companies in here. You can see we've got a couple of airports nestled right in the middle there, as well as a train station with some nice railway line buses. I don't think there's any trams around here, but people did use trams. Trams were used quite extensively in some areas. You can see that we've got a tram line going from this town here all the way down here to this town, and the reason for that is trams counted as road vehicles, so when the road vehicle cap was increased, people could build trams, and generally I think you can get more people on a tram than a road vehicle. Again, another massive town here, Snowville. I believe this was one of the largest cities from the start of the game, but then you got Penninghill and all this. Now, I decided to grow a town. It's one of the things that I decided partway through the game, and the town I decided to grow got renamed to Santa's Grotto, and this is it over here. Now, Santa's Grotto was a relatively small town, and it shot up in population over time. And you can see I've got a grid in here because the map that we used had the 3x3 grid town growth generation in it. Probably the best one to use in terms of just general gameplay. And I grew the town. I grew the town nice and big. I got it up the rankings quite a lot. If we look at the actual list of cities in the game, it actually ended up being second place, only behind Slendworth, which had been growing since the beginning of the game. So I was quite happy to be able to grow my town up through the list of all the other ones. Why did my town grow more than others in the game? Well, there were two reasons. First off were that grid. Where's the grid? Here it is. The grid of roads. I'm not going to go into detail of town growth because, again, I've got a tutorial video about that. But if you build the roads around the town doesn't have to, and it builds buildings instead, grows quicker. So my town grew quicker because I built out loads of roads. And also, I was funding it too. I was going into the local authority and I was funding new buildings. I was clicking that button loads all the way through the game. We had plenty of money to fund that. And it became the second biggest one. And there are some huge ones as well. Look at them all. Lots of huge towns. Nice. Another thing of note is at one point I proposed a highway around the world. And I never really thought that would happen, but it did. Players come together to build this massive highway that went all the way around the edge of the world. Now, I think there was some plans to get some more integration of this highway into nearby towns. Mostly, it's not connected to anything and is actually very unused. I think it would be really cool to have a game at some point which has a highway in it, but there's some sort of rule where you can only use the highway or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe there's an idea for a game mode in there. Put your ideas down in the comments section if you've got anything along those lines. But you can see it goes all the way around the edge of the map, and it was linked into some of the towns. In fact, if we look at the world map, we can see it here. It's this big streak line that goes around, and it was pretty much built by one player. All the way around. I don't know if it does actually interact with any of the towns, but I wonder which company it was. Could it have possibly been the Great Highway? Yes, I think it was the Great Highway. The company that placed 43,000 road pieces. Yeah. The Great Highway, congratulations to you for achieving that. Even though we didn't really use it, it was a nice little kind of extra thing in the game that we had. So there we go, a little bit of a look at an interesting map we had for our charity event. Let me know down in the comments section if you would like to see more videos like this, or if you have any ideas for other one-off OpenTTD videos. I'm looking forward to seeing what other interesting maps and events we have coming up in the future. Now, I do viewers games as well as charity events, so if you want to get involved with them, make sure you're following either on social media or on the announcements channel in my Discord, and the links to all of them are on my website. And again, remember, you can download this map, both the before and the after, from the website as well. And that's going to be all from me for now. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and goodbye.